Hey y'all, Kara Jones from MotherHenna.com coming at you today with another creative prompt. Today's prompt is inspired by Mr. Rogers. Some of you know I worked at the neighborhood for a while when I was in college as a PA, and he has, such a legacy of amazing materials of working with children and families. And what I've found along the way as my sort of creative turn and creative play has turned toward grief is that much of his material is adaptable to exploring the grief experience for adults and children. And so you may have seen one or more of the episodes with Fred where he is talking about the sensation of pouring. You know, he would do a lot of things with sand trays, or sometimes he would have like rice in the trays, and how sensory and important sort of building block it was for kids to be able to fill things and pour them. And he would have little toys that when you poured something through, it would make all the other little gadgets, it would pour through the gadget and turn other things around in the toy. And so I've been thinking about if we were to scoop up a big cupful of our grief experience and we were to pour it out, right? What would we see, right? And I think about doing that with water and watching the light glint off the water and how it will change colors as it falls down. You think about it with sand, what happens to the sand after it's back on the ground. If you imagine doing it with the kind of gadget that Fred would use, pouring something through it, it would make other, levers and wheels move and that kind of thing. If you think about scooping up a big scoop, right, just a big, huge cup of your grief experience, and you poured it through something like that, what would move? What would something change color as it was hit by the pouring grief? It can be, it's a little bit of an imaginative play that can be sort of, you may be thinking, well, that's really hard to get at, but just think about it. I mean, you can even do it physically, right? Go to a sink yourself and do the scooping and pouring, just meditating on what is it like to scoop up a cup full of grief and pour it out. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What splashes? What gets touched by it? What gets moved or energized, on the gadgets of the other toys of life when you pour grief through it. Just another way of exploring your grief perspective and your experiences, trying to learn something new from it, kind of looking at it from a different angle. You can do it in words, I poured a cup of grief at the top of a piece of paper, and maybe make a list of words that have to do with pouring. And then take each of those words and write a line about the grief experience, right? It's just a kind of a way of poetry making or writing about it, using words to explore it. You could do it in art, certainly, find a collage or drawing images of pouring, pouring things and collecting things, and what does that look like to you, kind of right across the top of it, or as part of the artwork, pouring a cup of grief or pouring my grief, and then exploring images what that looks like. You could certainly do it in movement. Is there a piece of music and some kind of body movement that would feel like pouring the grief, right? And what does that feel like to pour it? What does it feel like to pour it on a hard surface? What does it feel like to pour it on a porous surface? And kind of like explore all of that through movement. And then, music, definitely music. What does it sound like to pour something? What does it sound like to pour grief out of a cup when it hits the surface? What's that sound like? Again, it's all an experiment. It's all play. This is your experiment. No right or wrong way of doing it. I'm just putting out there this metaphor of scooping up, scooping up cups of grief and pouring them. What happens? What happens? What do you see and what do you learn about your own grief experience doing that? As always, if you explore, please come back and post comments, share photos or art images or blog write-ups, anything like that. I love coming out to see how the experiments are working for you, and this thanks for being here. Just thanks for joining me. This is Kara Jones from MotherHenna.com, and I'll be back real soon with more creative prompts.